All right, hello everyone. Welcome to an important episode. It's our last episode of Going Live with Good Soil, number 95. Almost 2 years of doing this on a weekly basis. Matt, I wish you lots of nothing but love and lots of luck on your next endeavor. And we can talk more about that at the end, maybe, or people have Q&A. We'll make sure to do a lot of Q&A today. But yeah, I mean, this is number 95. I'd like to think if we are known for anything, I would like to think this 95 week continuous episode going live is known for being pioneers of doing the YouTube live stream at the same time as Twitter Spaces. I mean, that's kind of I feel like that's a neat little feat that we conquered. And no one else has really copied very well yet, but I hope it'll become a trend and more people will do that.
Yeah, I hope so too, especially with the interesting things Elon's doing around monetization of Twitter. I think there's going to be more room for that. Farzad's actually done a pretty good job. Far be it from me to compliment Farzad, but he actually figured out how to get the Spaces interactions on YouTube just by holding up his phone to the mic. So yeah, there's not many people doing it yet, but I think it makes sense to go on more platforms, and so hopefully we'll see more people doing that in the future.
Yeah, someone just has to figure out how to make the spaces allow it to be more interactive, so you could invite people up to speak on Spaces, but then after that also be on the YouTube channel, at the same time with decent quality. So if there was some kind of bridge software created or built around that to make it easy to do, I think that'd be pretty neat. So for a time, there's going to be people wanting to post content on both YouTube and Twitter, I think, and then eventually maybe Twitter hopefully will win out and be the primary source of content creation or posting, So
yeah, I hope so. I think Elon's done a good. It's kind of amazing that he's so close to turning Twitter into cash flow positive, given where it was like 6 months ago. I mean, that's an incredible feat. So it's pretty impressive, and I think he'll, after, I don't know, another year or two, you'll have more content creators on here, and I think the financials will be in a really good spot. And I think everyone who got in at that overpriced deal at was it
44 billion,
$42 a share? Yeah.
Yeah.
They're going to feel pretty good about it, I think, when all is said and done.
Yeah. Yep. So our format, we'll stick to the format today, macro market / AI stuff, and then we'll go into, Tesla and Elon, and we try to split Tesla, the business, from Tesla, the stock, and we'll try to differentiate that a little bit if we can here. And then do Q&A and such. So we also have a couple other stocks we follow. Actually, Lemonade reports their earnings tomorrow, I believe. So that'll be interesting. It's a micro cap stock, and at this point it's crazy, but we'll talk about that later maybe.
They've just been clobbered, and now they're trading well below their cash value, I think, now, cash plus investments. So yeah, it's still a bargain stock in my mind. We haven't spoken about them much recently, but I still love the stock and its prospects. It's going to take a while, I think, to play out, but at the current price, I mean, I'm happy accumulating shares personally.
Yeah.
Not investment advice, but
no, not as investment. As a disclaimer, we put on the YouTube channels for anyone listening to Spaces. This is not investment advice. None of what we're saying is just our opinions. So let's kick things off with the macro market. The Fed is having their meeting this week. Rate decision. I think today PacWest and Western Alliance and a bunch of regional banks are down big. I think those two banks are down like 20%. So it seems to me the signs are pointing towards higher probability of a pause instead of the 25 basis point increase. I don't know if it's 50-50 or over 50% of a pause at this point, but I would not be surprised at all if they pause this week in light of like new worries since First Republic just went down a few days ago, and now there's more regional banks looks like might go down. So do you have any thoughts on that, Matt? I mean, I don't know what the latest Fed fund futures are pricing in the probability of a pause versus 25 basis point, but I would imagine it's still highly probable of 25 basis points at this point.
So I was actually just looking that up. It looks like the odds, at least as of 5 days ago, is the latest that I can find, is there's a 25% chance of a pause. So the markets are suggesting that they will go forward with this rate hike. To me, that seems more likely, just given how Powell and the Fed in particular have been unanimous on the course of these rate hikes, and are saying they're going to be higher than people want for longer than they expect.
Mhm.
So yeah, as stupid as I think this is, I do think we'll see another 25 basis point hike, and then that'll probably push the economy into recession, and then things will get all messed up, and then they'll have to come in and say, oh, we're going to save it by lowering interest rates and probably doing some version of quantitative easing again, which is just so stupid in my mind. But
Yeah.
I think that's the course that they're on.
Yeah, I think you're right. I hope they pause and are taking, data into account of what's going on right now and these banks failing but the biggest macro market in terms of the Fed, I think the biggest signal, we've been given since our last week's episode, is the news of this prank phone call by Russian pranksters. Impersonating Zelensky. They must be very good impersonators, Matt. You should study
Better
them.
than me. Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to up my game. Maybe I can
Yeah.
actually get Elon on these one of these times.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, Powell, it's not him personally taking these like it's his assistants or administrative people that are organizing. It's their fault. Powell is just given his agenda, I'm sure, every day of what he's supposed to do. Maybe he's giving slight input of what he should or one meeting versus another. But the vetting should be done by his team, the people, and so those people, how incompetent are they to get fooled like that? And this is not, this is where I think government jobs in general are not valued enough. So you have a lot of incompetent people working in government positions, doing poor jobs of things, because it's not just Powell, but a lot of officials, big time officials, have been fooled by these same Russian pranksters apparently in the last like year or so. So, Trudeau, I think, was fooled, and Lagarde in Europe. So you have all these like government officials fooled by these pranksters because their ops people are not vetting appropriately to make sure the person who they're scheduling meeting is who they say they are. So Powell leaked a whole bunch of weird data points in this meeting. Did you have a chance to like look at it much or
No, I was hoping to get a chance to actually listen to the interview, but I only saw a couple of the highlights. What was
snippets?
your
Yeah.
your takeaway, Emmett?
Yeah, I didn't listen to the whole interview. I think it must be somewhere. Maybe YouTube censored it. I don't know. But in the Russian version of YouTube, the whole call is apparently somewhere. And I've heard I listened to a few different YouTube summaries on our YouTube, US YouTube of with some snippets of the call. But Powell, he's basically saying that their mind, and this, keep in mind, the timing of this prank call was sometime in early February. Most people speculate it was like after some data from January was released, which happens in early February or something like that. So that's what most are speculating. We don't know the exact date of the call, so it wasn't like the call actually happened last week. Just the release of the call was last week. But at that time, um, Powell apparently was giving all kinds of like non-public information to who he thought was Zelensky about inflation versus a recession. How they're going to have to raise interest rates two more times, and they're going to stop. Like their mind is made up, basically. Even though publicly they're talking about they're looking at data points to decide. So it's
Oh, that's so stupid.
yeah, yeah. It just gives you like it doesn't change materially in my mind a whole lot about what is going on with where we expect interest rates to stop and go to or blah blah blah. But I think what changes is my perspective on how I view the Fed and how different the language they give publicly in these interviews and their public statement versus what they're actually thinking and doing. Like it's much I don't trust them as much now.
Yeah, I mean, it's another one of these institutions that has lost our trust, I think, in the public.
Mhm.
I mean, if you look at how wrong they've been, like, just go back to the zero interest rate policy. Like, that was very obviously a bad policy that was great in the short term. And then, nobody wanted to get off that, like cocaine high of zero interest rate policies. So they just kept it going for way too long because nobody wanted to be the adult in the room that said, hey, why don't we settle at, 3 or 4% interest rates, something a little bit more reasonable. But when everything is kind of humming along fine, you don't really have the reason to do that. Then there was no kind of impetus and nobody was willing to kind of step forward and put their neck on the line and say, hey, no, we're going to do this because it's the right thing to do. So you ended up that in conjunction with all the fiscal policy that was so loose, especially during COVID. You just were like blanketing the economy in in currency, and which is obviously going to lead to inflation. I mean, it's like simple math. So now they're on the other side of the ball, and they're going to. I think the intention is basically to crash the economy, and then they'll kind of mop it up after the fact. But it's like it's just like the only tool they have in their tool chest is these rate hikes, and then a little bit of, I guess, QT or QE. But they've just got such a horrible tool chest, and frankly, not enough of a backbone to do the right thing when it's not popular. And then the fact that you've got these unanimous decisions on all this stuff is just it's again pointing to how either inept or corrupt these institutions have come, where they're trying to do the right thing, but I think not really trying that hard, and they're not as impartial as I think we would want them to be. So yeah, it's unfortunate for sure.
Yeah. So I think it would be wise if Powell paused rates. I think if there's any way to restore credibility, they're going to pause. I don't know how that. Just show that they're not like a non-player character at this point. They actually can change their minds on new data coming in, and seeing Pac West and Western Alliance banks going down right now. And I think if they just pause tomorrow and surprise some people, that think they're just going to follow the exact outline of what they've set out, I think that would be helpful to their credibility slightly, just to show like, hey, these guys do change minds, on new data. I don't know. It's just, we'll see tomorrow, in the next couple days, what happens. So we also like to talk about just like what's going on with AI. I've been starting to use chat GPT more. I need to use it more. I think everyone's starting to use it a little more and more in everyday life and different menial tasks. It's catching on. And one thing that was interesting that we wanted to call out is Elon Musk, meeting with government officials like Schumer and other government officials about AI regulation. And apparently he seemed highly pleased with how that went. I think that's a good sign. I mean, what do you speculate, Matt, that Elon can actually do in these meetings? I mean, I guess he can try to educate them on the risks and how to stop it or something. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean that's my guess is he's pleased because he's done all that he can do to kind of raise attention. But he's been harping on this for a decade or more. I mean, he was talking recently in one of these interviews about how he had a meeting with Obama, and this was like the only thing that he wanted Obama to do. And of course, it didn't seem like a threat then, so you can't really blame Obama for not being as forward thinking as Elon on this thing. But it's like so hard to understand if you haven't spent a lot of time like digging into what are some of the potential outcomes, and how would these potentially be civilization threatening. It's very hard to kind of take this stuff seriously. And even if you do take it seriously, like how do you know what the right steps are, and then how do you actually implement something that's enforceable, and in a way that won't just like shift all the development overseas? I mean, I think there are some interesting parallels here with crypto, where like the US is coming really heavy handed down on crypto. And so a lot of the developers are just going overseas. So you don't want to be in the situation where you've got like the world's best AI developers are all here in the United States. And if you come too heavy handed or kill all their businesses with regulation, they'll just go somewhere else. And
China or Russia. Yeah.
And you haven't actually de-risked the problem then.
Yeah.
So I think this problem is just so hard because it's like, I think Elon had a really good point where historically it's like, a plane crashes, and so then you go figure out what caused the plane to crash, and then you change those rules so the same thing won't happen for future flights.
Yeah.
But you can't really do that with AI regulation, because you can't put the genie back in the bottle once it's like this super intelligence that is able to act with agency in the world and outsmart any plans that we might have to thwart it. So
what
tricky.
suggestions? What specific suggestions would you do? My thought on the specific suggestions Elon might have talked about with Schumer is like, not just the rules, but how to enforce the rules, right?
Yeah.
So enforcing the rules is something I've been thinking about, and I've seen Eliza mention some things, and I guess some ideas are they can detect with heat signatures globally where the server farms are too big that might be building a bigger AI,
Hmm.
and then like send missiles to those places to destroy those server farms because they suspect that group or company is breaking the rule and trying to develop a bigger AI. I mean, that's
Yeah.
crazy. Imagine if like we get into a world where like you hear about, missiles going to like server farms where there's too many Nvidia chips all at once, like trying to create a bigger AI and it gets blown up, just like, like right now they do with like nuclear reactors in Iran or something. It could be somewhere else, like something like that. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
future we could be going to.
There are some interesting parallels there of like, historically you've wanted to take out facilities that are enriching uranium above a
Yeah,
certain,
that.
purity level. And it's like, oh, there's too many NVIDIA chips there. We got to take it out. It's like,
Yeah,
it's kind of
yeah,
crazy to think, but that might be the path that we're going down. Personally,
yeah.
I think the kind of government has proven its ineptitude on this front. I don't think we'll get anywhere. If we do, I think it'll be some sort of like, D plus regulation that doesn't really
Hmm.
do much and maybe provides a couple stumbling blocks. And but then the open AIs of the world and everybody else can say, oh, we're complying and like yeah, we're on the same team. We agree regulation is good, but it doesn't really slow them down in any meaningful way. So I would put if I had to bet, I would say that's the outcome that I think is most likely to happen. But you could
Hmm.
even you don't have to like blow it up. I think one of the things that I think it was Eliezer was saying is you could just like cut off electricity to those. Or I think that was Elon actually. Now that I recall,
Mm.
just cut off electricity to that to that one particular server. That way you can take some time, reevaluate the situation, and once you've determined things are relatively safe, you turn it back on again without
You got to send the
destroying
inspector
millions of dollars.
instead of the nuclear inspector. You got to send the AI inspector down to inspect and make sure it's nothing, no AI they're
Oh,
building.
but
It's just a
it's
Bitcoin mining farm instead.
but it's so much more complicated. Like even if you had like the world's best, I mean, if you had Andre Karpathy to be your AI inspector, who was like, incredibly neutral and just like wanted the regulations to work. These things are so complicated right now. And in the future, they may be able to self improve so rapidly that if you schedule these every 2 months or something like that,
Hmm.
that may be too much time anyways. So I
Yeah,
just think there's
I
so many ways it can go sideways, that I'm just preparing mentally that this is going to be just a wild west scenario, and like whatever happens in AI is going to happen, and there's not a whole lot
yeah.
that's going to stop it and slow it down.
Yeah, I see Todd Smith in the comments saying they'll just put server farms in the ocean. Microsoft was already piloting this a few years back. That's crazy. Yeah. What if some of these big corporations are going to get around and just like try to, or some big company is going to try to build, just hide their server farms from, being detected just to build a bigger AI. It's a race to the super AI. It's kind of scary, where we're going, and regulation hopefully can slow it down so we can figure out the alignment problem. I think that's the core of the issue is the alignment problem. They probably talked about that substantially as well, I would imagine. But it would be crazy to, yeah, I would love to have been a fly on the wall in that conversation to hear about the ideas that Musk is, you know, is saying in not secrecy, but sort of confidentiality to
Yeah,
lawmakers, because there's certain ideas I'm sure he has that he doesn't want to publicly mention, but he
yeah.
would say to lawmakers he's entrusting to put effective regulation on it.
I would love to be a fly on the wall just to like try to gauge how much does Schumer actually understand of what Elon's even saying. Like I think that'd be
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Hopefully he's got some, younger staff, competent staff folks that can help understand what Elon is saying. Elon has a way of speaking in simplistic terms, being able to explain something to like maybe not a 5-year-old but a 7-year-old, like you say, oh, so Elon has a way of
Yeah,
making good analogies and drilling things down to first principles in a simpler way to understand, I think.
yeah.
So yeah, and you, I think in our notes yesterday in prep call, you mentioned that Sam Altman had some comments about some roadblocks he had or something. Did you notice?
Yeah,
Was
so
there something about that?
he had an interview recently, and again I didn't catch all of it, but he was saying how they were coming up to some roadblocks with the kind of technology that they already had. So I think the impression from a lot of us was that going from GPT-3 or 3.5 to 4 was very quick. I mean, that was like a matter of months, and it created this impression that like these iterations are going to be coming fast and furious with very significant increases of capability along the way. And I think what Sam Altman was saying, who, for those who don't know, is the CEO of OpenAI, which developed ChatGPT and DALL-E and a lot of these other tools. He was just saying, they're not even working on GPT-5 yet, and they won't be for a little bit of time. So I think it parallels in a lot of ways what we've all experienced on FSD, where like you get these like huge step forwards in functionality, and then like a lot of time goes by without anything happening, or maybe like even some reversions backward. And so I think that's all he was trying to caution, is that it's not like we've entered this new hyperbolic capability increase chart period of the chart where the time between major increases is just going to be decreasing substantially. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but at the same time, you're seeing pretty much on a daily or a weekly basis all sorts of new tools that are economically useful that are being released on the back of ChatGPT or some of these other functionalities. So I think it's kind of interesting that maybe the core team at OpenAI is running into some roadblocks, and they might be a little bit slower to develop some of this stuff. But then you got like Auto GPT, and there was another one I saw recently where that was like kind of a self-referential. It was carrying out these series of tasks and like adjusting its own goals in a way similar to what Auto GPT does. But the bigger point, I think, is that we're just scratching the surface of what tools can be built on the back of this existing technology. So you may have a slowdown in the release of future OpenAI or ChatGPT iterations, but I think you're going to have a whole lot of really interesting things that are being built now by different teams that are unassociated with it, that are just using the OpenAI APIs. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, because a lot of it right now is like almost like pilot demonstration capability. It's not really something that the general public can use yet, but I think 6 months from now we're going to start seeing some actual kind of like useful businesses that can make use of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to stay on our outline, but some of these comments just really take me on. Farzad's really ripping on you.
Farzad's been trolling.
He's ripping on you. Yeah, he's saying things like you're wearing a shirt that looks like a picnic blanket and all these crazy things. Oh my God, Farzad, man, you're cruel. We're gonna have to do You're gonna have to do an impersonation of Farzad later in the Q&A, I think. So you have to get him back.
Who? Are we live? I don't. Oh, sorry, babe.
Yeah. Producer wife, get on that.
Producer wife? Yeah. Am I sharing my screen? Is this okay? I don't know. We're trying to get better, guys. Yeah. But my brain's just not big enough to handle the responsibilities I have, so I'm working on it.
All right. So let's I mean, Elon had a good interview with Bill Maher. We're going to talk about that. I mean, there's nothing really to talk about there. I mean, just Elon making friends with people on, media and different parts of the spectrum and so forth, which is good. It's good to see Elon out and doing these interviews. I don't know if it's a good use of Elon's time to like travel to this Bill Maher studio. I mean, yeah, it's nice, but how much time does it take? How much effort is that for him? Like Bill Maher should come to Elon. Like if people want to interview Elon, they should go to Elon. I feel like at this point, the most important person in the world are very, more than arguable. It's almost definitive. If you got to interview Elon, you got to go to him. You don't. I don't think he should travel to your studio.
And I'm kind of disappointed
on whatever he's doing.
There was. He kind of semi-agreed to do that interview with Dave Lee and Rob Maurer like a year or two ago, and that never ended up happening. I would have so much rather have one of those guys who understands, his thinking very deeply do an interview than, this kind of series of interviews that he's been doing. On the other hand, though, if you were to kind of steelman why he's doing this, I think so many people misunderstand like who he is and what his priorities are, and like why some of the things that he says about like existential risks to humanity, and why Tesla is important or SpaceX is important. I think there's still so few people who truly understand that in a deep way, that going to some of these more mainstream outlets like Bill Maher and Tucker
Yeah.
Carlson is probably it's going to be really more beneficial to the reach of his ideas, even though it's going to be kind of like the 101 version of why he's doing this stuff. And nerds like us would want to go to like a PhD level thesis that Rob Maurer could try to extract out of him. But
Yeah.
so I do hope he does that sometime. But it's
Yeah.
probably more helpful to go broad at this point.
Yeah. Sooner or later, I hope he will. I know he agreed to it. I'm not sure. Um, yeah, I think it should happen hopefully sooner. I know Tesla Silicon Valley, the owners club, they had a good interview with Elon, which was
Yeah.
great. And maybe a couple more interview, once in a while interview with the Tesla fan base like that would be good. But yeah, Rob Maurer and Dave Lee, that's, long overdue in my opinion. Sooner or later, hopefully they get to actually sit down with him for a half hour interview or an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, Elon had a big comment on, he's been poking at the Fed for a while about interest rates. He seems very focused or stressed about how it's, going to put us into a deep recession if they raise interest rates again. I think Elon, and he mentioned he should know based on, his experience with Twitter, SpaceX and Tesla, so I think Elon feels very strongly about interest rates not going up higher. It's similar to how I feel about Tesla needing to do public education,
Yeah.
advertising. I feel like that's a similar position to how Elon probably feels with the Fed. Like, here's this Fed that makes their own decisions, and I know that you should be putting it down, but they keep raising it, and they have the reasons. And just like I feel like I know Tesla needs to educate the public better on EVs, but they have
Yeah.
their own reasons. So it's I can get where Elon is feeling like that, feeling very strongly, and I think we saw in Germany, they have some experimental financing. Affordability is the thing, right? They're keeping on theme with affordability, and we sort of speculate that financing is the next demand lever they're going to pull to bring demand forward at these current price levels. Is you know but keeping on theme with affordability is if they can provide more attractive financing terms,
Yeah.
then I think more buyers come to the table at these prices, right? So you saw just recently they're doing something experimental in Spain too in the last day or
Yeah.
two. You saw some kind of news?
So, I think in Germany, for those who didn't see, was it a 1% interest rate they're offering on the auto loans? So, essentially a subsidized financing to lower the monthly payment, which is really good. In fact, I think one of our listeners last week or the week before asked why don't they do something like that to kind of stoke demand. And we speculated that they might. So it's kind of good to see them actually doing that. But yeah, then just this morning I saw there was a 10-year. I think it was a financing option, not a lease, but a 10-year financing option in Spain that they were offering for. I want to say it was around 4% annual interest. So if you can
very
spread out your
attractive.
monthly payments over 10 years, I mean, that gets really small. So a lot of car buyers are looking only at the monthly payment. So that's why we've seen in recent years, some companies have started doing 72-month auto loans, which is, a lot longer than it currently has been. But like 10 years is kind of crazy. I mean, it's almost, like mortgage type of of duration on those. But that makes the monthly payments super cheap. Some people may argue that the reason that you wouldn't do that for a car is because you don't want to have your liability reach out longer than the life of the car. But I think with Teslas, that risk is very low. So I thought that was a really interesting new product that they're playing with in Spain. And Matthias in the comments says they're doing that in Portugal too. So this is kind of what
This is
our point about
promising for demand. Yeah.
advertising. We've been like, why don't you just try the advertising so that you've got the data? And so what I love about this is that they're just trying it. They're trying it in these markets, and I think if it works, if it has some traction, I fully expect they would roll similar versions out worldwide, or at least within some
Where
broader
inventory is building
geographies.
up. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And they have this 20 billion plus of cash on their balance sheet, right? I mean, what else are they going to do with it? They can help fund the financing, right? I mean, this makes total sense. They're not going to do I guess they're not going to do a buyback anytime soon. So if they're not going to do a buyback anytime soon and they can't spend it fast enough to grow fast enough, which I think is pretty clear. Some people say they need all 20 billion to grow. No, No, this is that's like, you can't throw that. They can't put that much money into growing their business,
Yeah.
as fast as they want. Like the most they can spend is like, I don't know, like maybe 3 to 5 billion or whatever. I think they put in their 10K with their, I think they're spending as much as they maximally can to grow as fast as
Yeah.
they can. Um, but there's constraints on how fast they can grow based on how fast supplies can catch up, how fast, there's a lot of things that have
Yeah,
to come in line.
even just like the employee attention on all these initiatives. I mean, you can't
Yeah.
build 15 gigafactories simultaneously, for example. Like you just like don't have
Yeah.
enough people, and so
Hmm.
you'd be diluting the quality of your workforce if you tried to do that. So that's
Yeah.
one thing I've noticed. Like a lot of people who've tried to like dunk on Gary Black, they're like, "Oh, you want to just like financial engineer your way out of this rather than Tesla actually investing in innovation." And it's like,
Yeah.
no, if you actually
No.
listen to what Gary said on this, he's like, I want them to invest in everything that the management team thinks that they need to invest in. And if there's
Yeah.
anything left over, then I want them to consider doing a buyback with
Yeah.
that amount. And so it's like,
And this is a
yeah,
version of financial engineering to drum up demand in a way, by
it
providing
is. Yeah.
financing. It's just a natural thing. Like, okay, they're not going to spend to educate the public. That's okay with me as long as they're doing something else productive to drum up demand at current prices. And I think this is a great idea. And I think Tesla Boomer Mama, she's going to be on Brighter with Herbert's channel later, or Cyber Bulls, or whatever I think it's called, or something, on their YouTube channel later to talk more extensively about this. So I'm looking forward to watch that later. And Matthias also just said that Elon just tweeted that, and I see in the tweets that the Fed is making decisions using stale data. This is like driving a car while looking out the rear window. Fine when the road is straight, but destined to crash when the road is winding. So Elon is really, I think he's really annoyed that they have to do this financing thing, and he's putting this tweet out there. I feel like he's capitulated. Like they got to do something. Demand is not strong enough. They're gonna have to bite the bullet and just provide financing. Something he probably did not want to have to do. But I feel like maybe I'm reading between the lines here too much. But I feel like he's putting these tweets out there because he's just like agreed to, like, fine, we'll do financing in these other markets too, or something like that. And now he's like just bitter and like, you know, just putting these arguments out on Twitter because he's
Yeah.
annoyed, kind of like venting.
Yeah, it's so funny too because he had this tweet a couple days ago, I think, where he's like, "I don't think anybody in history has as much access to real time data as me." And it was like this very like grandiose kind of
Yeah.
statement, which I'm sure is actually accurate, but like it's
Yeah.
the exact sort of thing that would be off putting to the people that he's already been really like annoyed with. Like, I've got
Yeah.
so much like power and insight and information. But his main point on that, I think, is right. Is that you've got all these like economic indicators, which are literally built from like people that used to go out with clipboards to like, survey people, and so you get this very lagging data that hasn't really been updated. And I think with the rate of change in technology right now, it is kind of crazy to me that we're so backward looking, and we've got these formulas that are like very obviously
Yeah.
biasing the information in a way that leads to data lags. And so it's frustrating. And I certainly understand Elon's his perspective of how can we, like the rate of innovation is like the most important thing in his mind. And he's seeing these super important government leaders who are impacting his business directly and frankly really hurting it with these interest rate changes, making dumb decisions that he has better information on. And he's been harping on this for like a long time. I get why
Mhm.
he would be feeling so frustrated right now.
Yeah. Me too. And I think this is great for, I think, increasing demand at current prices of where the vehicle. They even raised prices, right? They raised prices $250, uh, a micro raise, But I feel like it's to signal to all the buyers on the sidelines, kind of waiting for more price cuts. Like, hey, you better just buy your Tesla now because the prices aren't going. It would look silly for Tesla to lower prices substantially again after just increasing prices by $250. I think so. I think this signals that Tesla's done cutting prices, and they're going to do other demand levers like the financing, and maybe they bring back the referral program in a different way
Yeah.
at some point. So, what are your thoughts on these micro price cuts?
The price increases.
And the price increases, $250 price increases. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was very surprised by this. I mean, I think you and I have been saying for months now that the trend is looking bad. They had these pretty steep price cuts at the beginning of the year, and they needed more. And Zach's comments just a couple weeks ago on the earnings call was basically that it's we haven't had as much demand as we would have hoped for with the price cuts, and so I think the expectation was that more price cuts would be needed in order to
Yeah.
grow demand. You got to grow your deliveries pretty significantly year over year in a market where demand has naturally shrunk because of the economic concerns and interest rates.
Yeah.
So it was definitely my expectation that they'd have more, 2 to 5% price cuts in the next several months. And so the fact that we've got admittedly a token price increase, a couple $100, what was it, $500 or so?
$250, I think.
$250,
250.
yeah.
Yeah. So I
So
think
like
that's it. Yeah.
that doesn't move the needle, and that doesn't kind of inspire confidence that margins are going to like turn around
Yeah.
all of a sudden. But
Yeah.
what
It's
it does
odd.
do is gives a pretty strong data point that more price cuts are not immediately on the horizon.
Yeah.
This could be proven wrong, but I think one of the concerns that a lot of people, especially in the Chinese market, have been saying is with all these price cuts that you've been implementing lately, there's buyers who, especially in China, are so sensitive to discounts and not wanting to kind of get a bad deal, are just going to hold off on taking delivery of the vehicle or even just ordering one because they're going to wait for the price to come. So now all of a sudden you're introducing a price increase that may change the behavior and say, okay, you know what, I'm ready to buy and I don't want to gamble on a price cut. So I think it's a really good, just kind of like emotional or tactical strategy more than anything, as long as
Yeah.
they do actually have the goods with their, kind of order rate to sustain it. I mean, if they need to turn around in 2 weeks and lower prices by 5%, then this is kind of dumb. I think.
Yeah. 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 I think so too. Um, so yeah, I think that's good for margins. Good sign that margins are not going to get compressed any more than they already are going to be. I think that's stopping the bleeding on that, hopefully. And they're pulling other demand levers now with the financing, maybe the referral program. I mean, to us, it's so obvious. We don't want to beat a dead horse that if they just educated the public, if the public had perfect information, the vast majority of people who can afford and who are buying $50,000 plus cars would be buying Teslas. It's so
Yeah.
clear. And for some reason, Elon does not want to recognize that he can um, get closer to perfect information to the general public through
Yeah.
educational advertising. So it's too bad. I think it's a principled thing. Maybe the semantics of the word advertising. I don't know, but we've
Did
talked
your
about it a lot.
point of view on demand change a little bit? Because I think our impression had been that like back in January when we had Zach Kirkhorn and Tom Zhu basically saying that the order rates were a lot higher than production. Then just weeks later, they're cutting prices across the board, and so it seemed like that their actual kind of sustained order rate was really low. Some of
Mm.
the more aggressive bulls would say, no, like things are just in
They
transit,
sell
and
every
like
car they make.
they
That's
sell
like this
every car.
argument you
Yeah,
hear. Yeah.
yeah. And so, do you give that argument any more credibility now that some of this is just logistics and their actual kind of order rate is larger than maybe you and I thought that it had been so far?
I think people are confusing things. I think demand relative to other car brands for Tesla is very strong. But I think in this market of a recession with interest rates going up, I think demand for all cars are going down, right? And I think Tesla is feeling that. And they're increasing production. So they have like a bunch of things going against each other here. So it's like the perfect storm for them to see like, wow, we got to do stuff to increase demand more at these current prices because we're producing even more of them in a big recessionary environment with interest rates going up, So it's like all these things put together is perfect storm for them to have to do more than they thought, And so I think demand overall for Tesla uh if you look at it in a vacuum, is going down, or it's not keeping up with the price of a production growing, right? But
Yeah,
demand relative to all the other automakers is very strong. It's
yeah,
just it's two different perspectives to look at it from, if that makes sense.
yeah. No, that does make sense. I think the thing that I liked about this price increase is it kind of got me off the ledge of the sky is falling a
Yeah.
little bit, because they wouldn't be doing this if the order rate was like significantly lower than their production capacity. So I think it was a good move in that regard, just to kind of calm markets and buyers a little bit. But yeah,
I'm not
I'm
so
curious
sure
to see
yet.
how
I'm
this
not so
pans out.
sure yet, though. You're in that camp. I'm not so sure the sky isn't falling still, on demand. I'm not as sure as, I think it's possible the sky of demand at these prices is still falling based, relative to the production increase they're increasing. And Elon is so flustered with the data he's getting that he's venting on Twitter about the
Yeah,
interest rate. Like, I've never seen him pay so much attention to like a quarter, point increase that's already baked in. Why is he tweeting so much about this next quarter point increase? There must be more to it. Like, he must be really being, in a sensitive spot here with what's going on at Tesla, in my opinion. Like, there must be some tension there about demand at inventories being built, them having to pull more demand levers than they really would like to have to do, and so um I hope he breaks and just does the public education education campaign, because that would drum up demand significantly for all EVs and not
yeah.
just Tesla. But I don't know if he'll break on
That
that.
that would still be my preferred course of action too. And I think, especially at where we are right now with public understanding of these and all the misperceptions out there, and the fact that they've never done it before. I mean, the marginal return for your dollar right now, to me, would seems like it would be incredibly high.
Yeah.
Now, maybe that's not sustained. Like, maybe you need to dial that back over time when there's not so much of an educational gap. But it just seems really obvious to me that we're at this kind of like peak of misunderstanding that's that's leading Tesla to just leave billions of dollars of margin on the table.
Yeah, I have actually. There's a guy in the comments, Cyberlift. I think Kaz is his name. I'm actually gonna interview him in a week or two. He's a Lyft driver for Teslas, and he has a YouTube channel. It's really cool. I've been watching his videos, and he's basically all his videos are like educating customers who get in have all these misconceptions about Tesla. Now the question is, how many of those Lyft customers, number one, are representative of the general public that could be buying the Tesla? There's probably a lot of people in the general public who don't even use Lyft or Uber, but they could be buying a Tesla still, right? And number two, how many of those Lyft or Uber drivers are using like Twitter and could be educated on Twitter versus needing to see it on Instagram or TikTok or reality TV show commercials or sporting event commercials? So there's a lot there in terms of misconception in the general public, and it's fascinating to see the Lyft and Uber drivers, show their testimony of how uneducated their passengers are on Tesla, and you can see it on his channel. It's
Yeah.
great. So, well, I'll be interviewing him and asking him lots of questions about that. It's a great service. I think the Lyft and Uber drivers are doing to help educate their passengers on Tesla.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a great video a while back of this guy who was like a blue collar guy, and I don't remember where, but like maybe something like Kentucky. And he was talking to like his friend who's like, hated EVs, just thought they were, like the worst thing, and they'd like fail all the time. And so he just like went point by point. And these guys were like friends, they were in a softball league together, or something like that. And he's like, let the guy drive it, let him experience the technology, let him see the supercharging, like just busted all these myths. And this, guy who would be like stereotypically not an EV buyer was just like, this is actually a pretty great car. And if you can convert people like that
Yeah.
through all these different things, I mean, I think feeling the way it drives and the acceleration is probably like one of the best things.
Yeah.
But there's just so many people like that who could be buyers, but aren't even considering it right now.
Yeah, they've already closed their mind, or they've already made up their mind in the past based on some misinformation. All you need to do is
Yeah.
reopen that door of curiosity for them through this conversation, and as a Lyft passenger or through a public education commercial they see. You just got to open that door of curiosity up for them again so they can kind of figure it out next time they're ready to buy a car. Like, maybe I should look at that Tesla. And then once you get that door open, I think you have a lot of momentum. So you just got
Yeah.
to, there's a huge amount of the public is misinformed still.
I think if everybody who was concerned about like range anxiety could actually do a road trip with Navigate on autopilot and experience like how much better it is to do a road trip in one of these things rather than the traditional way. It's completely different than the way that you normally
Yeah.
do a road trip. So
Yeah.
that's to me, that was like a selling point. Once I did my first road trip, I was like, oh, I can't do this again without like navigate
Yeah.
on autopilot. It's just such
Yeah.
a pain to be like handling the, the curvature of the roads and like
Hmm.
changing your speed for the slow people in front of you. It's just so much more enjoyable to do it on FSD.
Yeah. And the business of Tesla is very strong long term. We're not worried about the business of
Yeah.
Tesla long term. We still believe that no matter what they choose to do here with demand levers or cutting prices further, we still heavily buy into the mission long term of Tesla. It's just if you watch the stock and you see it go down as we've been seeing it, and you see it continue to go down in the coming months, for example, which is more than probable in my opinion, then you have to. It's good to know a little bit about why that might be happening. If you're watching it, if you're just a long term investor in Tesla, then you probably shouldn't even be watching our show. You should be watching any YouTubers. You should just be like, all right, I'm gonna go live my life, and I'll look again in 10 years at my. You know what I mean? So, but if you're
Yeah.
watching and keeping up with the Tesla stock and so forth, then you want to know, you want to try to understand why the stock is going down and versus why it should be going up when you believe the business is still long term super strong. So
Yeah.
there's two things there: the business and the stock, right?
Yeah,
Eventually
yeah,
they
and
line
I
back up.
do like I've been criticized a bit, and I'm sure you have too, for
Hmm.
harping on all these things, saying, "Oh, like why don't you trust management?" And like I do very much trust management, and I think
Yeah.
this is not going to be a problem 5-10 years from now. We've said that a couple times, but I just want to reiterate it. Like we're going to be fine. Everyone's like, going to eventually wake up, but to me, it just seems kind of crazy to be leaving billions of dollars on the table. When the company could be using that to, um, you know, have a bigger war chest to fund future capital expenditures or something like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's you're absolutely right that we're going to be fine in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even Mr. Money Mustache, that guy who has that blog for, living very, scrupulously and retiring early on, $1 million or 500,000, living the rest of your life on that. He has this famous money, Mr. Money Mustache, I think is his name. He wrote a big article. He's been around for like 20 years. He's got a big following, but he just wrote an article about why he bought a Model Y. And so he's trying to educate the public. He did the research himself, and now he's trying to educate with his like blog about why the Tesla Model Y is super cost effective, cheaper than a Corolla, whatever, over years, and why him with that type of cost cutting measures he employs, why the Model Y is the best purchase. So you just need better, you need more of that, but you can't rely just on the grassroots bloggers and
Yeah,
YouTubers and Twitter sphere. We've done as much as we can. We're doing as much as we can in this current environment. It's not enough. There needs to be a little more. And I guess financing brings more buyers to the table, but you could also just educate the public a little better with more information, I think.
yeah.
So anyway, I guess that cover anything else with the stock you wanted to talk about, Matt? Anything else, or the business, Tesla the business, or the Tesla the stock?
No, I think we covered it pretty well. So yeah,
Yeah.
we can move on.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing that was mentioned was downtime in the Shanghai factory the last 5 days or the last 4 days, and that hasn't happened in the last few years. But it's sort of a gray area whether they should be having this downtime or not, I guess. And it's another flag for the people that say demand is not as strong as everyone thinks. If demand was as strong as as the bullish bulls say, then they would be, just like the previous year, still working, in this semi-holiday, quasi-holiday in China to
Yeah.
produce more Model 3s and Ys, right?
Yeah,
So,
and I do think that's really important for people to understand too. I mean, especially if you roll back like 1 to 2 years ago, it was kind of accepted knowledge among the Tesla bull community that all you had to worry about was how fast Tesla could grow production. You didn't really need to worry about demand.
yeah.
Gary Black and especially Troy Test, like I think, never bought into that at all, and so they've always modeled both supply and demand and tried to figure out what deliveries will be based on that. And the thing that caught my attention was that Troy was calling for, I want to say it was 12 days of downtime in Q2, just
Hmm.
because there is more capacity. I mean, he basically said in his note to subscribers on Patreon that there's significant overcapacity of the Shanghai plant, given the kind of combined demand for local sales and exports.
Hmm.
And so they're going to have to do downtime at the Shanghai plant to kind of make sure that they're not just flooding the market and building up inventory that nobody wants. I'm not completely sold on that argument. I mean, I think Elon has said that their goal is to maximize output, and they'll drive margins down to 0% if they need to, in order to make sure that they're selling as many cars as they can. So I don't necessarily think that Troy's take is accurate here. But my point is, if he is right, and if there's like unnecessary downtime beyond just a couple days for a holiday that historically they haven't taken off, then to me that kind of that would invalidate a lot of what the Uber bulls have been saying of like just trust management and like they're going to do whatever to maximize production. Because if you're in the standpoint where you're actually cutting back production, that's completely anti Tesla's mission of accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. So if your choices are advertise or cut production, I think every single Tesla investor and enthusiast should say, well, let's try to advertise so that we don't have to cut production. That's my point, is that if we get to cutting production unnecessarily, like not for line upgrades or something like that, then we've got a real problem, which is anti the mission.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, all right, guys, we're going to go to a little more extensive Q&A today, since it is our last weekly live stream episode here for Good Soil Investment Management. Matt is joining Bradford Ferguson, his RIA firm, and helping to launch Rebellionaire. I think you did your first, I saw your first video, I think, with him on the Rebellionaire YouTube channel yesterday. I felt like I saw a comment saying that it's like Matt has a new girlfriend, and I felt like that a little bit, but I'm happy for you guys. I'm glad you guys are together now and doing that. So tell us a little bit about Rebellionaire, though. What's that about? And then we'll go into Q&A. Like tell us about what you're going to be moving into, and then we'll do some Q&A for our channel here.
Yeah, sure. So I have been doing some consulting work for Bradford for a while. I think some people may have seen the Tesla report that I worked on with Bradford and published a couple months ago. So we've been working together for a little while, and I think a lot of people here would know Bradford. Just he's been doing a lot of research and providing insights, as well as kind of investment management services through Halter Ferguson Financial for many years now, and has done that quite successfully. But yeah, so Rebellionaire is this new kind of sub brand within Halter Ferguson that is focused on serving customers who would historically have been shunned by Wall Street. So a lot of people who listen to this channel and you yourself and myself, Emmet, are highly concentrated on Tesla. And so if you go to like a normal financial planner and say like, I'd like you to kind of help me with all the different financial planning needs that I'd have, they'd say, well, sell your 80% concentration Tesla. That's just crazy. You can't have that. So like before I can help you, you need to diversify into, something more normal. So what Bradford's trying to build with Rebellionaire is an RIA, or investment advisor, for people who understand Tesla's mission and are comfortable with the concentration risk, but still want those kind of normal financial planning services. And we're also branching into some other ways to kind of ensure people can try to accumulate shares over time. So, trying to trim tops and add during bottoms, or just add consistently if you have a source of income, selling covered calls as a way to generate premium too. So it's really a way for like-minded people who understand the huge, enormous potential that Tesla has, but still want some of that professional wealth management and financial planning advice. So that's what I'll be doing with Bradford there at Halter Ferguson and Rebellionaire. I have seen a couple people though just say like, oh, like Emmet's like abandoning Emmet. And I do want to make sure for those who aren't following us as closely, like I'm still invested personally with Good Soil. We've been talking about this for I think a while, Emmet, and just it's not a surprise. I'm not stabbing you in the back, I don't think, with this. And I'm definitely going to stick around to make sure that any operational things are taken care of. So there's no ill will between any of us. I think all three of us will get together at some point at a Tesla event, and all in good nature for sure.
Yeah. Just a little more background. The fund we manage, it had a very rough 2022, as our investors are aware, and as Matt and I are very aware of. And we don't get paid as fund managers unless the fund performs well. So it's a wise move, I think, at this time for Matt to make this. And Matt, the door is always open for you here. I'd be happy to uh, go back to doing a live stream with you ever if you're ever interested in doing it again down the road or whatever. So the door is open for you here with Good Soil anytime. And I think we talked about it. Once in a while, you may still pop in for an interview with me and some specialist on energy, or I think we're actually going to interview Drew Dixon again, maybe later this month, and you're gonna join that with me again. He's a well-known Tesla skeptic that we had an interview with back a year ago exactly. That went pretty well. So we're going to interview again with him end of this month. So I'm still planning to do some recorded interviews and kind of drum that up again. We haven't really done that this year much, but we did a bunch of that last year. So I'm planning to do that, more myself, just every few weeks. Have a specialist on some industry or topic that I think is interesting to our followers and Tesla related much of the time, obviously. So I'll still do that, and Matt may join on some of those once in a while. But the weekly live streams, we will put. I think without Matt here, I think it's better just to kind of end that going forward. So
probably we're so close to 100. I did see somebody say we should get to 100 before we quit, and I don't know. Maybe it may be the sort of thing. Maybe like once every 2 months or something we could do one. I don't want to make any promises, but we're still very much on good terms, and I'll be supporting Good Soil as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, no, thanks. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, let's go to some Q&A. We got time for a Q&A session here. It's my favorite part is doing the Q&A here. We have a lot. One thing I'm proud of with our channel that we built is we built it without marketing it like actively. We don't tell people to subscribe ever. We don't try to push it other than Twitter. We mention it ahead of time, but we don't really like push it. We're not really actively, we don't pay to get it out there or anything like that. And I think as a result, not monetized at all. And I think as a result, I'm really proud that we've actually attracted, I think, some of the most sophisticated followers of any channel out there. So everyone kind of following us, I think, is on average much more sophisticated than almost any other channel I've seen in terms of and I don't want to dunk on other channels, but there are very sophisticated people following other channels too. But I think just on average, we have a lot of sophisticated people that are actually genuinely interested and seek us out and then find and subscribe, if that makes sense. We're not tricking people in any way. We're not advertising, tricking people to click the subscribe button that, shouldn't really be subscribed, because they're not really interested. So, all right.
Yeah.
Let's go on to Q&A here from our very intelligent subscribers. From Hoops How on Twitter, Elon reinstated in Q1. Full self-driving will be the largest profit windfall in the history of any company. How will the stock react when this goes live? Could there be an options opportunity if you timed it right? Matt, what do you think here? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think what he actually said, which he said several times, is whenever he flips the switch and turns on the Tesla network for autonomy, it'll be the largest single asset value increase in history, which to me makes sense. And it's been something that I've thought is a reasonable thesis for many years. I've always said it's binary, like they're either going to do it or they're not. So if this happens, then yeah, it can be absolutely huge. And I guarantee Wall Street will not understand the full impact of this. So yeah, my point of view has always been, let's try to have a reasonable understanding of the capability of FSD. And from right now, like it's definitely improving quite a bit, but it seems like we still have a long ways to go before it's actually like robo-taxi capable. But I think when we do get to that point, when, to the point where Emmet, you and I have, I don't know, 3 months worth of drives without an intervention or something like that, then it's like, maybe, okay, they're really a lot closer to solving this than we thought. And so maybe if that is the case, then maybe they're 12 months away or something like that from launching a robo-taxi network within some geography that could get approved. And I think if you can time that right, there would absolutely be some options plays that could really work out, but not investment advice, because that can be very risky. And you might be right on the thesis, but Wall Street's just dumb for 2 more years and doesn't realize that this is going to be a huge profit windfall. So it's risky.
Yeah,
What are
I
your
think
thoughts,
that
though, Emmett?
that last part you mentioned is accurate highly. You know, you might be right, but Wall Street's dumb for another year or two until actually it's reflected in the stock price. So yeah, it might be obvious to you and I and others in our Twitterverse that, you know, Tesla, look, they finally solved it. Look, in Miami, cars are driving by themselves. Look, in San Francisco, we have cars, you know, certain municipalities have allowed it now. And look, it's working. Omar, who's I see Omar's, how you doing, Omar, in the Twitter spaces. I love your Omar is one of the best, you know, supporters of Tesla out there. By the way, he really has done a lot for the community, getting the word out, I would say. But he does a lot
He's
of
got a
great
dreamy
videos.
voice too.
Yeah, he's done a lot of great videos on it too, and he educates the public as much as anyone in term personally as a grassroots effort kind of guy in terms of the FSD capabilities too. So, but it might be so obvious to all of us, but Wall Street and institutional investors and everyone that's outside of our bubble, you know, they're still like, isn't you're just where Cruise is or you're where Waymo is now? Okay, big deal, you know. And so it doesn't get reflected in the stock price for like 6 months or a year later until it's like in like every major city, and like suddenly there's some tipping point where it really shows up on the financials, where, you know, now the take rate is 25% plus instead of 5% that it is now, you know. So it could be, even though it becomes obvious to us, I think, like you said, Matt, it could be 6 months to a year plus even, you know, I would say 6 months to a year is my guess of until it's reflected in the stock price. So it's not like a short-term options bet. I don't think you can do. Good question though. All right. We'll try to get through these questions quicker because that was a long
All
one. All
right.
right. My fault. Barbecued veggies on Twitter. What do you think Tesla's Q2 gross margin will end up looking like? In Trump's voice, Matt. I said in the beginning that Matt is taking impersonation requests. I was kind of joking, but I think barbecued veggies is taking it serious. So Matt, it's up to you whether you want to try to attempt this. And
I thought we would be doing impersonations only of, like, you know, Tesla Twitter personalities, but Trump's voice was not one that I was really prepared for. And just to set
okay.
the stage, I didn't do any prep for these. Like, I don't know. I feel like I got lucky on my Zach Kirkhorn and Elon Musk impersonations. So, you know, look, I'll just say Tesla's Q2 margins, they're going to be a disaster. Okay. All right. Nobody's got better margins than me. Not Tesla, that's for sure. Because Q2, look, not the best. So that's all I got. I wish my hair was
You're
more
fired.
floppy.
Yeah, that was his most famous line from that show.
You're
Remember?
fired. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was. Couldn't have imagined watching that he'd be
Tesla
president one
management,
day.
you're fired. Yeah.
I think they'll be
Yeah.
fine though. In all seriousness, I was doing my
You
modeling
think the
yesterday
Q2
and
margins
had
will
to.
be okay?
Yeah, I think it'll be a drop sequentially from where it was in Q1. I mean, Zach
What do you
basically
think?
guided for that. So I don't
15%?
have the numbers up here.
It
I
was
mean, I think
18%
I was still
Q1,
coming
right?
up close to 18% what on the AutoX credits. Is that what it was?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe 17.5 or something like that.
Just that. Just a tiny drop.
Well,
Okay.
because there was the one time, half the miss they said was the one time warranty issue, but then you also have to take into account the fact that the price cuts didn't make their way through the financials completely. So I think those things will come close to offsetting each other, but will be slightly worse overall because the price cuts are going to be a bigger deal. So, but you know, I think we're looking at earnings per share for this year of like $3.50 to $4, somewhere in that range, which is a lot lower than we were expecting a year ago. I mean, I was pretty sure we were going to be like $7.50 or something like that. But now we're, you know, essentially cut those in half. So it's been a rough go for sure. But I think they're going to be fine. And then next year they'll turn the corner. Cybertruck's going to start contributing, and margins are going to increase from there.
All right. Next question comes from Carl Branco, YouTube comment. Saw today for the first time a Hyundai EV Ioniq 3 commercial comparing it to what a Tesla Model 3 doesn't offer, including favorable financing. Is this a sign the industry thinks Tesla ads are coming soon? So he saw a Hyundai Ioniq 3 commercial today comparing it to what a Tesla Model 3 does not offer. Interesting. I wonder if you took a picture. I'd love to see it. I don't know if Carl, if you have a picture of that ad or something, I'd love to see that, because that is a, you know, interesting data point to have if the competition is starting to try to continue. I think there was some of that advertising done in the Super Bowl that we all saw 2 years ago, and Tesla's orders actually increased because of that. So when I hear of things like this, I think that's actually good for Tesla demand, because you're inspiring curiosity for the general public to look at EVs again, right? And I think if you inspire that curiosity, then a lot of them will come to their own conclusion that Tesla is a good EV. Yeah. So I think that's hopefully this trend continues in my mind.
Yeah, I think that's good news for Tesla in my mind. Even if Tesla doesn't end up advertising, I think this is going to certainly help people to start thinking about this, because if it's 0% market share for you right now, and then you see this Hyundai ad, maybe you start considering Tesla actually, and you
Yeah.
otherwise might not have. Hey,
Yeah.
Emmett, one thing I'm not sure we touched on. What about your future? I saw this in the comments. What's going on with
Yeah.
Good Soil? What are you going to be doing?
Yeah, so I'm gonna stop this live stream. It just wouldn't be the same without you, Matt. And I will keep the good. There's two. It's two prongs to it. There's the media stuff, and then there's the fund. And the fund's gonna keep going. I'm gonna run that and keep my same investment philosophy in that fund, similar to what I have done in my personal trading over the years. So I don't know if the results will yield the same, but that's the hope. That's the for the fund. Eventually, the returns will come back. But there's certainly no guarantee of that. Very rough 2022. But on the media side, I think the Good Soil Investment YouTube channel, I'll just do some interviews from time to time and continue to support the mission of Good Soil and give to some charities, based on the basic the people I interview. And I'm just looking for ideas. So if people have ideas of people I can interview, I'm always happy to take suggestions. So yeah, every few weeks I'd like to have
Yeah.
another interview to release, I guess, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you started Good Soil, before I joined too. I think a lot of people don't realize that, but you actually founded it and then brought me on about
Mhm.
2 years ago. And so now you're just kind of back to being at the helm solo. So
Yeah.
I think the fund's still in very good hands, and it's got lots of runway, and I still
Yeah.
very much believe in it. I see Bush Cream in the comments saying, where can we find info on the fund? You can go to goodsoilinvestment.com and find info on the fund there.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's go to the next question here. Is from Just for Fun's question. Elon seems to be saying another Fed hike will be disastrous, but a hike seems quite likely. Assuming a 25 basis point hike, what happens to Tesla margin and cash flow this quarter?
I don't think 25 basis points impacts Tesla in any meaningful way on this. I mean, even if they were to cut by 25 basis points, I don't think that would change things too much. These things take some time to work their way through the economy, and sure, it'll make the borrowing rate slightly better if we did see a cut, or just things staying flat. But personally, I just think the 25 basis points is too small. The thing I'm more concerned about is the likelihood that we may have a recession, in the second half of this year, just because of the Fed action. So that's what I'm more concerned about than the quarter two financial impact.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Next question is from Andrew Bazile. How you doing, Andrew? In the YouTube comments, question: do you think Tesla will, in the next few years, produce a larger SUV competitive with the Rivian R1S? Model X is a little smaller and too expensive. There is some van apparently in the works. I think there's a lot of speculation around that. That might be one of like the robo taxi like vehicles, is my guess. I don't think the next vehicles are going to be intended for humans to drive. I think it'll be uh, any new models coming out other than the Roadster 2.0. I think they're all going to be a different, business model category that's kind of new for everyone, where the car just drives itself. I almost wonder if it's going to be set up in such a way where these new designs are going to make it more of a hassle to drive it yourself than to let it drive for you. Right now it's kind of like almost more of a hassle to learn to let the car drive for you than to drive it yourself, because we're so used to just driving ourselves. But I almost wonder if somehow the way they design these new ones is going to be the opposite. Any thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that's going to be a huge market mover. Elon did say something about like a cargo van or something like that. And to me, if you're going to be in all product categories, you do need one of those, like a Ford Transit or something like that. And the one thing, like I've got a family of 8, we don't fit in any EV on the market right now. So, even for, just a larger family car, even like a full size Expedition or something like that, there's even the Rivian doesn't offer, seating for 8. So I think that is something that, while it's a small part of the market, Tesla could serve pretty well. And Elon has basically said that they're gonna do some sort of van. So I would imagine it's like a sexier looking of a Transit, which can be for kind of commercial purposes, like a lot of your local plumbers or like electricians that need the big space. But that also has like a passenger version of it as well.
Yeah. Next question is from OD and the OP and the YouTube comments. Question: Why Elon said that X is an NVIDIA H100 chip buyer? X.com, I guess. Is this signaling that the
I assume
Tesla
that's
D2
Dojo.
chip, Dojo 2 chip is a failure? Hmm. Yeah, I mean, that would be something to find more of an expert like Naveen Rao or something. Maybe I should get him on again. We've interviewed him in the past with that
Yeah.
AI with Gary Marcus, but maybe I can get him on again to talk about
Get Naveen
something like
solo
that.
this time. He didn't have a
Yeah,
chance to speak last time.
yeah, just me and him solo. He didn't have much chance to speak, but that's his sort of expertise. So maybe that's a good thing. I should get him on there. He'd probably be able to go on for a half hour about
Yeah.
this at least. Just yeah.
Yeah, I would say what we can glean as laymen on this topic, though, is that Elon did say that the Dojo is a little bit of a hit or miss. Like it'll be a home run if it actually works, but if it doesn't, then it just frankly won't work. That'll be kind of the end of it. So it's clearly not ready for prime time right now. Otherwise, Tesla would be using it for their own training, and they're not doing that yet. So that was several years ago at one of the AI days that they had. They said, the real test for whether Dojo is successful or not is when the autopilot team wants to switch over their training from the NVIDIA GPUs to the Dojo cluster. And so the fact that they haven't done that yet says that, it's not competitive. So if Elon is serious about wanting to build an AI company, then he's going to do it with these, NVIDIA GPUs rather than the Dojo. Now, hopefully that changes over time. But right now it's not there yet.
Yeah. Next question is from Breakfast Pizza. Hey, Breakfast Pizza, you've been on like I love, you can come up with great questions. So great question here. How would Good Soil react to Tesla announcing another Bitcoin buy? In favor, negative because outside core competency? I would just be kind of confused, like the focus. Why is the focus on another Bitcoin buy? Like, I would be confused and kind of dumbfounded by it. I'd be neutral, I guess, but confused. Any thoughts, Matt, for you?
Yeah, I just think it would be a distraction, and this is something that I've actually come to agree with Gary Black on. I disagreed with him initially, but he's like, if I want to buy Bitcoin, I can just buy Bitcoin and hold it myself. Why are you, Tesla, forcing me to hold it indirectly? I think, especially with the U.S. regulatory stance right now, really souring on crypto. To me, it doesn't seem like it would be doing them any favors to try to do that. And I mean, even if they bought like 100 million and it tripled or something like that. So now you've got 300 million of Bitcoin. Like, who really cares? So to me, it's more of a distraction. Like, if they want to do some stuff to, promote purchases with, Dogecoin or whatever, I'm fine with that. But I think it's just more of a distraction and would probably be viewed negatively by institutional buyers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Martin Muldoon in the comments says, "Hey, doing." Martin says, "I hope Elon never talks about Dogecoin again." I mean, Elon hasn't talked about Dogecoin in a little while. It's usually there's some reference to it every week or so, but I haven't heard him talk about it in a few weeks
He
now. I guess
changed
there
the
was that.
Twitter logo
That's
a
true. He
while
did
ago.
temporarily, yeah. So
Yeah.
I know that upsets a lot of Tesla bulls as well, not just the Bitcoin, but the Dogecoin stuff. I'm kind of neutral on it. I think he's allowed to have views on
Yeah.
those things, and
I think it's fun.
yeah, yeah.
Life's too serious sometimes. A little bit of Dogecoin fun is fine. I don't hold any, but
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah. All right. Next question here from Rudy Rome on the YouTube comments. In your opinion, how close is Tesla to solving FSD to at least level 4? I think they are very close. Level 4 means like the car can drive from A to B without a human needing to be in the car, right? Am I getting that right? In almost all situations or something like that?
I think it's like it's unsupervised, but it will ping you if it needs you to take over in a certain situation. I
Yeah.
believe that's the definition.
Okay, that's the definition. Oh, well, in that definition, I think they're super, super close. Yeah. So, I mean, I've been very impressed just in the last like few weeks since the latest version. It seems to like just on its own get better and better. So this next version that Elon says is even better. I can't wait to get that. So I've been driving all over, you know, for the area I live in with it on, and it gets, almost does everything almost flawlessly. I mean, even in rush hour traffic, it does things great. I mean, there's certain like scenarios where it still needs some fine tuning. If there's a long, if you're in a big traffic jam and there's a, backlog of cars that are trying to make a left, and the backlog of cars is so far back that it's even further back than the left turn signal, and you kind of have to creep in that middle area. So, and a human obviously knows that through its intuition, but this self-driving doesn't figure it out until it's too late, for example. So there's a few things like that it needs to work out and figure out. But for the vast majority of things, it's really been impressed to me, like even in construction sites. And I don't know, at least here in the Bay Area, it's definitely
Yeah.
overfitted up for this area apparently. But Matt, what do you think in Michigan? I mean,
Yeah.
or what
So
are your
I was actually
thoughts
just
on this?
driving it in a construction zone yesterday. So it was, just a 2-lane with a left turn lane, but there was construction in one of the lanes. So I had to drive in the left turn lane with like cones on either side. And the car did not like it at all. So I had to take over. It wanted to like turn into some cones and stuff. I mean, it was nothing dangerous. But it clearly had no idea how to handle that particular situation. But that's a odd situation, and one that I don't think is like too complicated, to be honest with you. I think they're going to figure it out. I get the sense that we're maybe like 18 months away from level 4, 12 to 18 months. But it wouldn't surprise me if I'm wrong on that, to be honest with you. I think
Mm-hmm.
the fact that they've got this version 11 right now, and they're not like rewriting the whole like backbone software stack, and instead they're just trying to improve the algorithms and the neural nets with that are embedded within that software structure. To me, that's a good sign that things might be improving more quickly going forward. I did try to ask this question to James Dalma, and he kind of downplayed the potential for increasing rate of improvement. But I think based on Elon's comments again, now granted he's been wrong about this like forever, but it wouldn't surprise me if we see some really significant improvements between now and the end of the year, or 12 months from now.
Cool. All right. No, I think 6 to 12 months. You're 12 to 18 months.
12
That's
to
a little
18.
more.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
the rate of improvement could be faster at this point, but we'll see. So let's just do one more question here, I guess. We've been going on for a while. Last question here is from T. Nelly in the YouTube comments. Question: any updates on 4680 dry battery electrode ramp? Thoughts on its overall importance for future growth of the company? I mean, the 4680 production ramp is huge. I mean, battery day, they're still I feel like they're everything from battery day seems to be going to plan, except for separating the lithium from the clay or the sand. That was like one thing they were talking about in the battery day. I remember that never seemed to happen, but it seems like they're online. They're ramping up the 4680s, the dry battery electrode stuff. I know Jordan from the Limiting Factor does a lot of this detail. I've listened to some of his YouTube channels. My interpretation of listening to him and some others is that Tesla is proceeding, as expected on this 4680 ramp, and it just takes time, but they are proceeding, and that it's obviously super important for the company's growth, especially for the IRA rebates. They get the full rebates for the 4680s they produce in the country. So, Matt, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, so one of our investors asked if I would do an impersonation to go. So if it's all right with you, I'd like to answer this question as Gary Black.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So I think to get this right, you got to start with the camera angle. So I got that. Yeah. So, when I'm talking to my clients and my investors and even institutional investors, the question is how does this impact margins? And I don't know that we have enough information to really answer that. So, look, it's good. We want them to ramp 4680 and increase lower their cost of goods sold. Absolutely, I do. But how does that compare with the 5 to 10 to 20% price cuts that they're doing? So the question is margins. I mean, you got to do margin projections, and then you do a PE multiple on that. And so I don't think I have enough information sitting from my desk to answer how is the cost of goods sold decrease from from these 4680 cells compared to the price decreases. So I just don't model it because I don't have the right data for that. So.
That was awesome. Yeah, with the camera angle change, that was perfect. Yeah, no, I thought that was a Gary Black answer for sure. Yeah,
And I love
yeah,
Gary. Again, this is just for fun. It's not at all a hate. And actually, I kind of agree with Gary on that. With my version of Gary on that. I think it's 4680 is definitely a good thing for the long term, but I don't think it's going to be like the silver bullet that doubles margins or anything like that.
yeah. All right. Well, I think we should end on a silly joke here. What do elves learn in school?
Ooh, what do elves learn in school? I don't know, something about stockings. I don't know. What is it?
The alphabet.
Oh no.
That's a good one you could bring to your kids. Okay, for the dads
Oh,
out there,
that's a
that's a
total
good dad
dad
joke.
joke. That's a if you
Yeah.
want to guarantee the eye roll, you go for that one.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. All right, easy to remember. All right, guys, signing off last time for the live stream, and I'm sure Matt and I will be around. We'll be on other people's spaces. We'll have our own spaces one day again, I'm sure, or just randomly, or we'll be on other people's YouTube channel. We'll still be around. Just this weekly Tuesday at 9:30, 12:30 Eastern is going to have to stop here. So good run with you, Matt, and wish you the best of luck. And to all of our listeners, thank you very much. I'll still put out some content on interviews and such. So hopefully you'll like that, and we'll see you soon. All right, or
Thanks
maybe
everyone
not.
for all the
Okay.
support over time, and Emmet, a
Yeah.
special thanks to you. I mean, it's been an
Sure.
absolute pleasure, and no, it didn't end the way that we were hoping it would, but it's been an absolute pleasure nonetheless, and I've learned a huge amount from you. So
Yeah.
sincerely, thank you for everything you've done for me over the last 2 years.
Sure. No problem. You've been a big help to me. I've learned a lot. Goes both ways. All right. We'll see you guys later.